All right. Welcome, everyone. Call the meeting to order. The January 24th, 2024 meeting of the San Mateo County Board of Education will come to order. As is our practice, this meeting will be recorded. I warmly welcome our Youth Commission Liaison, Bethany Zhao, joining our board at the board dais. Hi, Bethany. The board provides remote access for members of the public and welcomes community members joining in person and remotely. The board is following the requirements of Assembly Bill 2449, which enables remote participation by board members only under specific circumstances. We use simultaneous interpretation in Spanish for those attending virtually through the end of public comment. Translation will continue further into the meeting if people are utilizing the channel. Thank you to our interpreter this evening, Eva Camacho, for joining us remotely. For meeting attendees wishing to access the Spanish translation channel on Zoom, please click the interpretation button on the menu bar. We ask that all speakers be mindful that Spanish interpretation is occurring and speak slowly and clearly. I ask board members to speak directly into the microphone and remind all speakers who are wearing masks to remove their masks when speaking in order to be clearly heard by all attendees. Item 1B is our approval of our agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second.
There's a motion by trustee Gerard and a second by trustee Lempert. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes by a vote of five ayes and no noes. Okay, public comment, guidelines for public comment. Item 2 is our public comment for non-agendized items. Guidelines for public comment are available on our SMCOE website and in board docs, as well as on the table outside of our boardroom in both English and Spanish. If there are speakers who require Spanish interpretation, our interpreter, Eva Camacho, will interpret following each speaker's comment. At this time, members of the public may provide comment for topics not included on the approved agenda. The Board of Education does not act upon any matter that has not been agendized except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. It is the policy of the county board to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. Superintendent McGee, do we have any comments submitted prior to the meeting?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. Speakers are invited to make live comment and have 3 minutes to speak. The board's executive assistant, Jennifer Perna, will keep the time and advise when speakers have 30 seconds left. Please stay within the time limits. To make a comment over Zoom, members of the public may use the raise hand feature. Instructions for using this feature are provided as an attachment in the board packet. Once the hand is raised, please wait to be acknowledged by Superintendent McGee. Superintendent McGee, are there any members of the public attending remotely who wish to make a comment at this time?
We have one hand raised, Jasmine Bedola. Jasmine, you may go ahead.
Yes. I had a question regarding the efforts to move away from traditional English instruction to bilingual instruction. For example, two-way immersion or one-way immersion in the San Mateo district.
Thank you, Jasmine. If you submit your comment to me directly, we can reply with some general information for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There aren't any other.
I see no other hands. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Members of the public may also provide comments in person. Are there any submitted cards?
No cards.
Okay. Let's see. Public comment addressing specific agenda items will be heard immediately before the board takes them up. If members of the public wish to speak to a specific agenda item, please use the raise hand feature when the item is announced, or if in person, please submit a card in advance of the item. Our next agenda item is our Employee of the Month. So item 3A. And our January 2024 Employee of the Month is Diana Chow, Systems Analyst, Integrated Technology Services, Business Services Division. And Diana, will you join me in the center of the room? Here. Okay, hi Diana. All right, so each month, the board and superintendent recognize an employee for providing outstanding service. For the month of January, we recognize you, Diana Chow, Systems Analyst in the Business Services Division. Diana joined the County Office of Education in May 2015 and is part of the Integrated Technology Services team. She supports the Enterprise Resource Planning System for the San Mateo County Office of Education and the county school districts and charter schools. Diana demonstrates exemplary database scripting skills and has developed several automation scripts to make routine processes easier and error-free. That's really important. Diana also responds to requests for assistance quickly and is often observed taking calls moments before her workday ends and continuing her conversation until the user's needs are met. Diana recently assisted 7 districts in integrating human resources data with their Active Directory and other local services. Each district had a different set of requirements and custom setups, and Diana enthusiastically worked on these projects and completed them before the anticipated go-live date. Diana also covers for colleagues on vacation to ensure critical monthly and quarterly reports are filed on time. Recently, while covering for a colleague, Diana identified process improvements that made the tasks easier for the team. Diana is a pleasure to work with and a valued team member who is committed to learning, innovating, and providing excellent service. We are very proud of our County Office of Education staff and are pleased to recognize you, Diana, for your outstanding work. Congratulations on being named Employee of the Month for January 2024. Would you like to say a few words?
Good evening, board. Good evening, board president, members of the board, and Superintendent McGee. I want to take this opportunity to express my deep appreciation and gratitude for this recognition. After a number of years working for several private technology firms in the past, I have been with the SMCOE for the past 9 years. I have to say that I have enjoyed working here for the mission of the agency, which is to help educate the children and the youth in San Mateo County. I believe provide excellent customer service in a timely way is extremely important in any position, and especially in the public sector. I take pride in doing so every day. I have also enjoyed working with my team and the support and encouragement of my supervisors, including my current manager, Daniel Winnie, and the executive team. I understand we may be embarking on an upgrade of our ERP systems. It is very exciting to be part of it and contribute to the successful implementation of that process and the growth opportunity that it may provide. Thank you again for this recognition. I look forward to many more years of service to the SMCOE. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have some gifts for you, so before you run away. It's okay. We have our apple and a little gift, a little extra gift.
Thank
Oh, you're welcome. Congratulations. All right, that's always the funnest part. No, Beverly always really look forward to that. It is very fun to recognize a staff who's doing, oh my gosh, so many important things. Okay, so where are we here? Next, we have item 4, and item 4A, introduction of Donna Urier, who was recently promoted to coordinator P3 in early education in the Educational Services Division. Welcome, Coordinator Urier.
Good evening, Board President Bonini, members of the board, and Superintendent McGee. I'm pleased to introduce myself to you in my new capacity as the P3 and Early Learning Coordinator. Over the past decade, I've been dedicated to fostering excellence in San Mateo County's early learning sector. My contributions include providing instructional coaching, delivering professional development, and managing SMCOE's significant state preschool and general childcare contracts, and providing support for licensed childcare providers in navigating the response through the COVID-19 pandemic and understanding the ever-evolving guidance to remain open as an essential business. In my most recent endeavors, I've had the privilege of representing San Mateo County as a selected member out of 300 applicants for the UPK Mixed Delivery Access and Quality Work Group in partnership with CDE and the Glenn Price Group. This involvement has allowed me to contribute to the development of legislative recommendations for the statewide implementation of the Universal Pre-Kindergarten, which will provide universal pre-kindergarten options for all 4-year-olds and select 3-year-old children across California. Additionally, I've played a pivotal role in the design and licensure of the Ann Campbell Child Development Center, a project that fulfilled a long-standing dream for SMCOE to offer and model an inclusive setting for young children. Before coming to SMCOE, I served as a Head Start education manager, overseeing 6 school sites and ensuring compliance with federal and state regulations. I successfully led these sites to accreditation through the National Association for the Education of Young Children. And with a background as an elementary school counselor, director, teacher, instructional aide, teen parent, and former foster youth, living and working in diverse communities, I'm deeply aligned to SMCOE's vision of excellence in education for every student, educator, and school. I express my gratitude for the ongoing opportunity to contribute to the alignment of prenatal through 3rd grade education in San Mateo County. And I'm enthusiastic for the future successes we can achieve together in the county. Thank you.
Congratulations on your promotion. And from what we've seen when we visited the Ann Campbell Center and hearing about the licensures and the districts who are doing that, I know that's really complex. So thank you very much. Okay, next, item 4B is our introduction of Tara Ramsey, Coordinator, District Improvement and Support, Educational Services Division. Welcome, Coordinator Ramsey. Yeah, or you could, I think that one's, oh yeah, or that one, yeah.
I want to challenge myself. I am a raging introvert, and I've decided to kind of go off script to really be in the moment. Tara Ramsey, new coordinator of district improvement and support. I was going to share my credentials with you, but what I really want to do is to use this moment to express a deep gratitude. Ichigo Ichie is a Japanese idiom that describes a cultural concept of treasuring the unrepeatable nature of a moment. We'll have this moment forever, but never again. That's why I came in the center. I want to take this moment to thank Mike, Annabelle, Jessica, Carrie, Jeff, Joy, and Gracie for interviewing and hiring me. Almost everyone that I've met has noted that I joined a great team, and you have lived up to this reputation. It is really rare to find both kindness and competence in an organization. And for this, I am really grateful. My team doesn't know this, but in saying yes, they helped me to realize one of my career goals. In 2016, I lost my mom. She passed away. And anyone who has lost a significant love understands the transformative nature of death. Death ironically catapults the living to start living. And it begs us to answer the question, how and why am I living or alive? So I wrote my own job description entitled at the time Chief Culture Officer. And the role involved helping districts bridge the gap between their mission, vision, and day-to-day practice. When I described this role to my graduate cohort, they said thoughtfully that it sounds like I wanted to be the bar rescue guy for districts. Fast forward 8 years later, I received the offer to serve as coordinator of district improvement and support, literally helping districts bridge the gap between mission, vision, and practice. You can't make this stuff up. Ichigo Ichie, treasure the unrepeatable nature of a moment. We'll have this moment forever, but never again. I choose to make the most out of my life and in pursuit of and saying yes to these moments. Thank you, Mike, Annabelle, Jessica, Carrie, Jeff, Joy, and Gracie for interviewing me and hiring me. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to say, good evening, board president, members of the board, and Superintendent McGee.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you. Welcome. That was beautiful. Okay. Next up, we have approval of our minutes from the January 10th, 2024 regular board meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for that meeting?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Motion by trustee Gerard, a second by trustee Torres. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, 5-0. Motion passes. And, oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. Oops, I don't know why. Okay. All right. Next item is our consent agenda. Item 6 is a consent agenda. The consent agenda is not debatable and requires a unanimous vote for passage. An item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular order of business for separate discussion and action if any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda? I would like to pull an item from the consent agenda, item G, which is our approval of our 2022-23 San Mateo County Office of Education School Accountability Report Cards, our SARCs, for the Corydon Community Schools and Special Education Programs, which will be posted by the end of the month, I believe, or by February. So if there's a motion to approve the consent agenda for all items except for item G, that would be great.
So moved.
Thank you, trustee Gerard. Is there a second? Trustee Lippert, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. So I'm gonna look to Council Niblin. We can address that item immediately following now.
Yes, you
Hold
can.
it. So the item that I pulled is the SARCs. And I just had I pulled it for just a brief discussion because I think it's very important. One of the agenda items that we're going to see in our next meeting, our second meeting in February on the 21st, is some reports from our court and community school programs and the education program. And there's some alignment in the SARCs to those reports, at least the ones I've seen. Also, I wanted to note that they're important. I did look them up today. They're 40 pages. One's 42 pages, one's 40 pages. And a couple of the items that are in there, I think, are really aligned to things that we talk about a lot, which are, what are the outcomes? What are the, how are we, what are we doing to get to those outcomes? And so I just wanted to encourage the board to look at those in advance of the next meeting, but as well noting that, we have there are some of the notes in terms of, or the statistics in terms of the staffing and the teachers and how they're serving. What's reported in both of all the reports is that a lot of our teachers aren't actually serving in the roles that they're certificated for or in the specific subjects. And so I'm sure that there are reasons for that, but it is of concern to me. I know in the reports from the JJDPC that we'll look at next time, it was also noted as somewhat of a concern. And then I would also say, I know that some of the students we don't have for very long, but when we look in those reports and in the SARC, if you look at it for the student, the CASP numbers, they're either non-existent or very, very low. And so when we're looking at how the programs are running and the accountability, for the next meeting, I want to hear more about that and how we can actually use that data, because it's either incomplete or we don't have enough of it. I don't know what that means, but anyway, so that was the reason that I wanted to pull it. So does anyone else have any comments on that item? And if not, I'm happy to make a motion to approve item G, 6G from the consent agenda, if there's a second.
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Gerard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 5-0, the motion passes. Thank you for allowing me to do that. Okay, let's see. Sorry. Oops. All right. Let's say, I guess we're already on to 7. Oops. Sorry, I got my pages confused. Okay, that takes us to item 7A. And item 7A, Superintendent McGee will provide information on a draft communication plan regarding our this SMCOE schools. So Superintendent McGee.
Thank you, President Benini. As the cover memo explains, I had a meeting with the Gateway Subcommittee. I believe it was I honestly don't know when it was. It was in the fall sometime. It was a few months ago. I think it was November or December, early December. No, it must have been November. And as a result of their explorations and discussions with other partners in their committee process, they had a number of questions to raise with me. One of which was the guidelines that I use for communicating with the board about things that are happening on school campuses. There was an incident at Gateway that was a student behavior incident. Law enforcement responded. In past years, we've had very close relationships with law enforcement and in an SRO kind of environment. And so our law enforcement partners would often just come by school just to check in on people and had relationships with kids. That hasn't been the case since the pandemic as much. I did not inform the board about that incident because our numbers are very small and we're always connecting or protecting confidentiality of students. The matter was handled and anyway, there was questions from the subcommittee and they wanted more information about such incidents. So what I proposed was to bring back to the full board a comprehensive plan of the types of things that I would commit to making sure I inform the board about. Many of them are, fairly routine, but it's laid out for you for your review and discussion. If you have questions or you want to know more about a particular scenario or incident or why something isn't on the list, I'm happy to answer any questions. I presented it as a draft communication plan because I'm interested in your feedback. So we can, I can take that feedback and still continue to revise. And so with that, I'll just leave it to the board to have discussion or ask questions.
Thank you very much. I wanted to, just before I open it up for questions from the board, I wanted just to also note that the incident that happened, we reported out on it at our November 15th meeting in our subcommittee report for the Gateway Subcommittee, in parallel to what Superintendent McGee noted about wanting to bring back a plan. We can talk if anyone wants to talk through the draft, but one of the things, two things actually, that were in addition to this incident were early, we learned that there was an early dismissal that day based upon the events and the dysregulation of the campus, which we shared in November at our 15th meeting, and that multiple students were suspended. So there were other things also that happened. So I just wanted to fill out that scenario that we had heard about. And the reason that we brought it to Superintendent McGee from the Gateway Subcommittee was because we hadn't heard about it, but we heard about it from multiple people in the community. And I know Trustee Alvaro wasn't here, but we heard about it not just from our conversations within the Gateway Subcommittee, but from other places as well. And so the request had to do with us hearing about things, confidential as they may be, that we would obviously keep it confidential if it was, but that it would be shared with the board before we would hear about it in the community, because that's uncomfortable. So that was just sort of a little more framing of that. So does anyone from the board have any questions or comments? Bethany.
I was wondering why specifically only incidents of student violence at the Gateway Community School will be notified to the board?
Because in our other settings, we have, in our special ed setting, we have a population of students for whom what you might call disruptive behavior is part of their disability. And so that is sort of a more, I don't want to say a more routine experience that isn't the same as someone intentionally going out to hurt someone. It's more of a result of disability. And at Hillcrest, all discipline and incidents are handled by probation, and there's a lot of probation supervision. So incidents are interrupted or intervened with very quickly. And when students are incarcerated, their the discipline is out of our hands. So it's handled by our probation partners.
Got it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board? Or comments or discussion? No. Okay, I did have a couple of comments on the draft. One of them was the same actually as Bethany's in terms of the, not just the calling out of Gateway, that was helpful to understand why it was specifically called out. But also just the language around incidents of student violence. I don't know that I would ask that perhaps we consider some different language for that. It could be an incident, it could be a disruptive behavior, or something, or some way to describe it. I just think that's a little bit, I don't know.
You are talking about, student on student aggression, which is student violence, and or student on staff or between staff. So disruption, we can work on the language and try and find a different word, but it seemed to me that that's what you were really interested in hearing about.
I think that was, if I don't know that that was a specific incident, right, for this that we heard about. However, it could be any incident, right, that is
Well, I'm
worthy
definitely
of
not going
having,
to inform the board
worthy
on
of having
any
the-
student discipline.
just to finish, worthy of having law enforcement called, because law enforcement isn't generally there. So if law enforcement is called, it would be something obviously more egregious, but it could be student violence, or could be.
Yeah,
but
there's
I
another
don't
line.
like that language personally.
There's another line on here, line 3, emergency response to an SMCOE facility from a police or fire department or other public safety agency. So if any fire or police responded to any of our campuses for an emergency response, that's on the list for informing you.
Okay,
So that kind of covers the public safety response.
okay, that's helpful as well. And then my other comment is in the 4th paragraph. It reads, once the emergency is managed, we refer to it as an emergency, the county superintendent will then notify the board through whatever communication medium is deemed most effective and efficient, including text message, email, and phone calls. I would appreciate there being some time frame around that. I know it says immediately, but I think it could be more specific. So you might I just would ask if you could think about what would be a reasonable time frame, and maybe it's within, 48 hours, or I don't know what that time frame would be, but I think it should be prompt and it should be specific and not just not noted. So I think those are my comments. My concern around this initially was that it was something that we heard would not normally be shared with us. And I feel like we have heard about incidents in other circumstances at other sites. And so I'm just interested in there being consistency. And so that is really, really important, I think. And understanding that we are a confidential group of people. And so sharing it with us is not breaking confidence. Trustee Goodbart.
I just want to weigh in, spending from our retreat where we talked about having these conversations together. So I just want to, I appreciate the superintendent doing this, but I strongly disagree with asking the superintendent to do this, because good governance affects kids. And as we've talked about, and there were some differences in our view, but from my perspective, a primary point of this office is to ensure equity in this county in terms of organizations. We talked about all the work that is done on reviewing LCAPs and working with our districts about this. But a boards that hire and fire have to be conscious of their oversight. Our board, and we might have slightly different interpretations. There's the letter and spirit of the law, but we have an elected official who runs day to day. When I stood on the board of supervisors, and maybe the county council can weigh in, the sheriff was independently elected. Think of all the things that happened in the county. Think of all the things that happened in the DA's office. Think of all the things that happened. County manager notifies major news events to the board, but not all. Some of the best districts run, San Jose School District, Long Beach School Districts, lots of schools, short board meetings, board sets a vision, staff carries it out. You're asked as a constituent, which I have been tons of time in my experience, did you hear that happen? My gosh, no, I'm not, I'll check. That's the response. We have a staff here that is working day in and day out on behalf of kids. And we talked at this board meeting, and there seemed to be agreement that we need to be really careful about the requests we make of our staff for their health, for their ability to do right by kids. And I've talked a lot in the county council's office, previous county council, but this county council said he agreed. There are some comparisons with the sheriff's office and the district attorney's office and others independently elected offices. But to put on this, the board, like, if you were in a larger area, think of all the stuff that happens. So I just want to express my deep concern. The committee that I agreed to, that my understanding at the time was the superintendent totally agreed to it, is to gather information similar to we did with outdoor ed to bring back to the board, not to be a constant, separate stream. So I just want to register my really deep concern. There's a lot of focus in this Bay Area, in this state, in this country about kids' outcomes are connected to governance. And micromanaging our team that is spending all this time on trying to ensure equity in the school district is not helping the kids we most need to serve. We don't have to all agree. I'm sending my strong views. We are notified if there's a significant thing that might be on the front, on the Daily Journal. And sure, it would be nice to know, but that takes a lot of time. And then say, talk immediately. How about the response the staff has to engage in when that student is having that issue? All the work that the staff has to do. And this is an independently elected official. So I'm going to continue to speak up about this because governance affects student outcomes and we're here for the kids. And I don't think this is helpful. What we're going to do, go micromanage about how this response should be done differently. So I'm deeply frustrated by asking our staff to do this kind of extra work. It's not something I've been familiar with, my own experience, and it's something that the best run school districts don't have to do.
Thank you, Mr. Lemper. Does anyone else have anything to say? I would just say that in terms of this policy, we didn't request it. Superintendent McGee said she wanted to create it. So we didn't ask for work to be done. And I would also just respond that when we just in the day-to-day hear from other districts, other staff in other districts, and people in the community about this specific event. I have served on other boards as well, and I was informed about what happened on our campuses. That is the job. We are responsible to hold the system accountable for student performance, for better outcomes. When students are sent home early, they're not receiving their education that whole day. And so that impacts student learning as well. I do not think that making a phone call or at least alerting the board president that there was an incident is a significant amount of time to spend on such an issue. That is my opinion. And I will leave it with that. Are there any other comments before I open it for public comment? Trustee Gerard.
Yes, I have to agree with President Benini. And also, I want to thank Superintendent McGee for putting this together because it really is helpful. And to be out in the community and have people from other districts come up to you and say, wow, you know, the cops were at your campus in Gateway and what happened and blah, 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 blah. And we're like, we don't know. I don't know. Have no idea. I appreciate being informed because clearly other people in this county and other districts are informed, but we weren't, and it's our school. And so one of the things as president that Superintendent McGee did that I really appreciated was many times she would pick up the phone and call me. She didn't call the whole board. She didn't send messages to the whole board. She would call me and say, I just wanted you to know that this happened. So it was very helpful to me, and I appreciate the effort that was put into keeping us informed, because I think we need to be informed. We need to be informed about our students, and we need to be informed about our programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Trustee Torres.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Superintendent McGee, for putting this together. I think this would be something that isn't going to, hopefully, that needs to be reported on constantly, but when it is something pretty big that we hear about, since we're out in the community, I always hate to give the response of, I don't know. Because then it just looks bad that we don't know what's going on within our own schools. And I think it's very explicit in what will be expressed to us or notified to us. I think I would just add in number 9, like changes in like the school day hours, if they cut the school day short for some reason, because I think that's what happened last time. If we're notified of any changes like that, I think would be helpful.
Thank you. Are there any more comments from the board? Okay. Are there any comments from the public? Don't see any. Okay. There is no action to take on this item. Can I ask a question in terms of it's not an official policy. It's sort of a guidelines. I don't know. So will it come back to us? Will it be something we approve, or will it just be something shared? I'm just curious.
Well, that leads to a different discussion about after the board retreat, there were agreements and things that were discussed. I think the plan of the CSBA Good Beginnings is that the board has a governance handbook, which this board does not have. And so it is on my list of questions that we didn't get to in our very long meeting a couple weeks ago in preparing the board agenda, because we have time to discuss that. But it seems to me that this would perhaps be an addendum to a board governance handbook.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I feel like maybe part of it would be like an expectation, maybe a general statement in the handbook, like, communication around issues, and it might be like, it might just be separate. But
Yeah. For now, I'm happy to send the board a copy of this document.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, we can follow. Trustee Cannon.
So, and when I read this over, and I happy to get information on all of this stuff if it doesn't seem to be a burden. So this seems to be something, Superintendent McGee, that the staff you feel is possible to do without being a big burden.
Most of this we do. I mean, all of this we really do. I typically don't communicate with the board about student discipline.
Yeah, well, I just think, I don't know what kind of a burden it is. If this were the Jefferson Elementary School District where I worked, there's no way that the board would want to have after-hour incidents of graffiti or vandalism that will be noticed by a school community, because they were out painting the schools every single morning.
Right.
And vandalism, yeah, I mean, it was ongoing.
Mhm.
So I don't know for us how big of a deal that is.
Right. I can remove it if you'd like.
No, I'm not asking you to remove it. I'm just asking how much of a burden that is. Does that result?
Well, the challenge here that I'll get caught in is I don't know. I don't know about. Our staff is out there cleaning it up. Maybe it doesn't get reported to me. Then I can't pass it on to the board. So there's a good faith effort on my part to keep the board informed. As former board president Gerard mentioned, I absolutely communicate with the board president frequently when there are incidents that happen in somebody's trustee area in a district with a child that, or if something's going to hit the news or if there's some sort of emergency event, and how are we handling it for our own schools? Always informing the board about those things. I think the difference here is that student discipline is a tricky thing, and I'm not going to get caught in having to communicate every student discipline issue. Now, we can talk about the fact that law enforcement responded, but there's a lot of context behind that. And I'm not going to get into that with the board. We're going to handle it as professional educators. It very, very rarely happens also. I will say that, like, very rarely is something happening that happened between two kids that were on each other's nerves, right? So,
Well, again, I just think back to an ordinary district. The first year that I was an assistant principal, we had 450 days of student suspensions. We
right.
certainly didn't let the board.
Yeah,
know.
I'm not going to inform the board about student suspensions.
So I'm just picking perhaps on the low hanging examples here, but just in general, as Mr. Gerard said, you have engaged in communicating in important issues, and I would expect that you'll continue to do so. What I'm not interested in is what I've seen over the years, and for many years in Daly City until we got a new board and a new superintendent. There was an assumption when information wasn't given that there was a bad faith involved on the part of the superintendent. And I'm not interested in that happening. I have the assumption that you're going to be making a good faith effort to inform us of things, especially after, as Ms. Gerard said, you've indicated that to her and to us.
I could add that, something at the beginning of the statement that we should have an assumption of good faith here, because there's always good faith. As Mr. Lempert said, there's a lot on the plate every day, and I don't always get all the information every single day about what happens and why. And so there should be a good faith feeling among us as a team that I'm doing my best, and maybe I missed something. It can be pointed out and I can explain, okay, I'll go back and get more information about that, if that's of importance. But I think that's an important point, that there's no devious plot to withhold information from the board, ever.
Thank you for that. I just want to say one last thing. This list of things is much more than I ever would have thought you would have put together. The request that we had was merely if we see law enforcement, or if there is an extreme situation, that we be informed of it. So this is far beyond what I even anticipated, just in full disclosure. And there's really no intent on my part. And I think it wasn't the request at all to have all of these things on there, just so that we're clear. And we believe there should be good faith that things would be reported. However, when we raised it very respectfully and had a meeting, because we were concerned, and we had a meeting with Superintendent McGee about it, before we brought it, we were actually told, oh, I would never tell you about that. And that was off, and that was not something that I expected to hear.
What I meant was I don't typically inform the board about student discipline.
And it wasn't discipline, it was law enforcement on campus.
Well, it was a student discipline event that involved law enforcement, but that,
I'm just reframing it as
right, if
as
your
the-
issue is that law enforcement responded and the issue is whenever law enforcement is involved, you want to know, that's also not necessarily okay, because law enforcement gets involved in all kinds of things that wouldn't be something I would be informing the board about.
Okay.
We're good partners, law enforcement at our schools. So I felt like I covered what seems to be the logical things that a superintendent should be informing their board about and about their schools, mostly around emergencies, right?
And we appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think that simple statement would be okay too. I just invite you to consider that.
Okay.
And I don't, I don't expect it to be this vast policy. As we said, it's not a policy. It's sort of the expectation that if something extreme happens, that at least the board president is told, at the very least. Trustee
Just want
Lemon.
to make one more comment. We elected officials, we all make our own decisions how we do that job, but I just wanted to respond to, I don't know. I've gotten a lot of feedback that saying, I don't know is refreshing from an elected official. Because elected officials always know about everything. In terms of this specific thing, what I say when someone asks is first I briefly explain the role and I say, I'll find out. And then I also say, thanks for asking, like, and then I use it as an education moment, because I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just saying for lectures. So it's okay to say, I don't know. I've had more people say thank you rather than making something up, but that it's a teachable moment about how understaffed our schools are, how much goes on day in and day out in this county, in our schools, and what our students are facing, and the discipline and what school folks have to deal with. And our county offices has to oversee all that as part of overseeing. And so I just do a teachable moment. So I hear you, but what I'm hearing is sort of this, one thing I want to respond to is this frustration that we should know everything, because if someone at a community meeting says what happened, it looks bad if we don't know. I respect that if that's your view. That's not my view. I think it's fine to say, I don't know, I'll find out. And then and if you want to say more, here's what I don't know, because there's so much going on in our schools, and here's what the county office is responsible for. And that the oversight of equity in our education system today in California is centered at the County Office of Education. And we don't have that much staff for doing all that we're doing. And our superintendent and our staff are working their hearts out. So I don't know, but I'll find out. I'm sorry, I don't know. But this is what I'd say, it's bad governance. I knew everything that was going on. In terms of law enforcement being called, law enforcement there's a lot that going on, the mental health, the health concerns of students. I mean, you think someone in LA school board knows about everything that's going on? And I just go back to being on the board of supervisors. How much do our board of supervisors know about all the specific instances that go on with the sheriff and law enforcement and the jail, even though they're overseeing the budget? So just my opinion, but we talked at the retreat about being more clear. I totally respect how each of us want to do our jobs. I just think, from my own opinion, saying I don't know is fine, and finding out. And that if we're setting the standard that this office has to make sure we can respond to anything and everything that happens here, or else it's embarrassing. I don't think that's the standard of an elected official, and certainly a county school board member, given we have an elected superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Lemper. I agree with you 100%. I feel like this was an outlier situation, and it was of great concern to those of us who learned about it. So that's why it was raised, and I agree with you. Okay, let's move on to item 7B, superintendent's comments. Superintendent McGee, do you have comments to share?
I only have a couple. I have actually just returned from the Palm Desert this afternoon at 5 o'clock from the county superintendent's meeting. So I haven't been in the office this week. It was great to reconnect with my colleagues across the state. There's a lot of concern for the welfare and longevity of superintendents across the state. It was actually a big topic. We have counties where superintendents are being recalled, where they're being they're on the receipt, they're in the throes of a divisive society, essentially. And so the job is hard, and there's a concern for the consistency of leadership across the state, that if we really want to accomplish the very big audacious goals that we have set out for our kids, we do need consistency in leadership. And turning superintendents over every 2 years is not helpful for any kids. So there was a lot of discussion about that and what we can do as county superintendents to help counteract that that reality is what we find ourselves in. And there's a feeling that we're not ever going to go back. I think sort of during the pandemic, lots of people had lots of opinions and came forward to state them, but we were hearing from county superintendents that are seeing school board meetings going on for 8 hours with an amazing number of community members coming and fighting about adult politics that don't really have anything to do with kids. And superintendents managing that and trying to keep the focus on kids is a challenge. And it can hurt your heart too. So that was an interesting theme, because typically when we go to these meetings, it's you kind of get inspired about how important the role is and how much change we are in the middle, that we have the opportunity to influence. And this one was more about how can we help take care of ourselves, help each other, and help the profession by providing by ensuring more longevity and consistency in the leadership roles. One thing on the list of our agenda was about the legislative agenda for 2024, and I will share these documents out with the board. Like I said, I just got back about a couple hours ago. But the legislative policy priorities of the California County Superintendents for 2024 are threefold. And they have prepared a policy page, like a one-pager on each item. The first is strengthening California's diverse education workforce. So it talks about recruitment and retention of our education workforce, and that represents the diversity of our students. The second policy priority is improving equity and access for students with disabilities. I actually sit on this committee for the county superintendents, and we are doing a lot of important foundational work in our vision and mission in this work. And we're seeing these efforts spread out across all of the different mechanisms that the county superintendents have to impact students. We have a curriculum and instruction steering committee called CISC. There's 13 subcommittees out of that steering committee. These are all the professionals from across the county, from across the county offices of education, come together once a month. And if you're working on a committee, you might be involved in many more meetings than that. But the CISC committee has added a lens of this very policy priority for students with disabilities to all of their work. So they're really raising this one. What is the third one? I said there were three. Here we go. Third is continuing to support the successful implementation of whole child student programs and policies, which clearly intersects with our strategic plan of our whole child student outcomes. So that's about mental health, connecting kids to meaningful after school activities so that they can expand their learning. And it's about building strong school culture and having a sense of belonging where there's diverse curriculum that represents all of our students so that all students can thrive. So that's really all I have to report for tonight. We meet again as county superintendents in April for our next quarterly meeting.
Great, thank you very much. Item 8A, the board will receive the draft board governance calendar. Superintendent McGee.
So Trustee Benini brought the board governance calendar idea to the board last year. And we had a model from CSBA. We weren't really able to focus on this until after the new year. So in the last month or so, in the superintendent's office, between myself, Patricia Love, and Jennifer Perna, we've been working hard to try and get a reasonable calendar that is modeled after the CSBA version, but simplified. And then we had a really great meeting with Board President Benini and Vice President Torres about a week ago to kind of go through the draft. So this is still a draft until the full board says this will work for us. But the idea is that we're plugging in the annual responsibilities of the board by the month, so that if you have an idea about some presentation or some information that you want to hear about and you want to bring that to an agenda, you probably, if you look at June, you can see that almost every square is filled. So you might not expect to have that extra information in June. This just helps with your planning and understanding what your responsibilities are throughout the year. It's not perfect, but it definitely is I think, good bones to get started for a calendar. And it's also one page, which we like. The idea is that we would, I think, make this a digital version, and you would have a link on your board website and have access to it through all the other means that Jennifer Perna avails you of. So just looking for feedback, and does this make sense? Is there something missing? Is it helpful before we go ahead and make it a final?
Well, first, thank you for preparing it. Are there comments? Trustee Gerard.
Yes. I think it's perfect. It is one page. It's certainly easy to read and very clear. And I think it will be very helpful, especially if we can't remember different things, which a lot of us can't. It's great to be able to have some place to go in and look. Some of these things, are super important, and we may want to prepare ahead of time with questions and things, and this gives us a chance to do that. So thank you very much. Very happy with it.
Trustee Cannon.
So I agree, Bev. It's a great help, and thank you, Nancy, for you and your staff working on this for us. And thank you, Chelsea, for bringing it up. It's just one of the benefits of, rotating board members and new people coming on with new ideas. So I thank you for that idea.
Thank you. Trustee Torres.
Thank you for beautifying it. It's much easier to read. Before, everything was clustered into one box, so it's kind of hard to see how many items were in that box. So definitely much easier to read. So thank you.
We haven't even really beautified it yet.
Yeah, I just, I agree. It looks better than the last draft. I'm sure
Mhm.
every, and my hope is that it's, and I think this is the intent, it's kind of a living document. You'll
Mhm.
see there's a column at the bottom that is our subcommittees and liaisons. So anything that the board feels is like, happens at a certain time of year. We actually know some of those things like superintendent salary committee or different things that will pop into there. Doesn't have to be every meeting, but if you are on a subcommittee or you serve in a liaison position, there's a specific time when something happens. It would be helpful to know that. And then, yeah, I'm just really grateful that it's the way it is. And I want to specifically thank Patricia Love and Jennifer Perna, because I know they've been working hard on it as well. So, and to the whole team. Thank you for the meeting to talk about it so we can understand it and where we were with it. Are there any other comments? Are there any public comments? Okay, there's no action to take on this item. All right, our next item is 8B. The board will discuss and potentially act on providing input to the California School Boards Association, CSBA, on County Board of Education needs as CSBA took action to form a new representation structure for county boards of education at the end of November at the CSBA conference. Board Member Gerard, I know you are serving on the committee that CSBA has created to give input on this. And I know this agenda item came because Trustee Alvaro, who's not here, but she did give me some comments, raised it as well as having a discussion. So I was wondering if you would be willing to start the discussion or share anything that you think is relevant.
Yes, I will. And I will try to not be angry because I was on my second transition group meeting today. The first one was January 10th. The second one was this afternoon from 2 to 4. And the focus of these two phone calls have been putting together the workshop that we will be holding in March. We had a committee that had been working on it and had done a lot of work in putting together this workshop. And at the last meeting, it was very clear that CSBA thought they were going to come in and just take over the whole thing. And there are 15 members on the transition committee group. John McPherson, the president of CCBE, was asked to submit 15 names that he would like on the committee, which he did. Out of the 15 names, 6 of them were not used and were replaced with people by CSBA. And I am going to make a bold statement about that, and that is after the meeting today, I think it was very clear that CSBA intentionally placed people on the committee, replacing the people that Mr. McPherson had recommended that are definitely pro-CSBA and eliminating CCBE completely, which was very disturbing to me. However, several members of the committee have worked very hard and been very outspoken, especially about our workshop, and have stuck to our guns about having sessions that are things that are important to county board members, not things that are important to CSBA. And I am very, very concerned because if you read the information that Patricia Love put in our packets tonight, CSBA has made it very clear that they are totally enveloping CCBE within CSBA. And I think what we need to really think about as county board members is what's important to us. We have like 350 plus county board members in the state of California compared to several thousand school board members. And you cannot take a small group like county board members and dump them into an organization full of thousands of people that don't do the same thing you do. Their county office, they have no idea what county offices do, and I can guarantee you they do not, let alone county boards. And one of the things that has been so valuable to, I think, county superintendents and county boards is being able to work together as this small group of people that do something completely different than what districts do. And CSBA does not want to recognize that at all. And they're letting us have our conference in September because it's already planned. And we would lose thousands and thousands of dollars if we didn't, because we already have hotel, guarantee hotel reservations and all of that. However, it also is very clear they have no intention of letting us have another one going down the road. It will all be enveloped into CSBA, which means there aren't going to be times when all of us as county board members can sit in a room or walk around a hotel area and all be together and say, hey, what board are you from? What are you doing? That isn't going to happen. I mean, when we were at the conference in December, the only reason that I saw Hugo was because he was at the presentation for the Golden Bell Award. Otherwise, I never saw him. The only reason I saw Chelsea was because she was at the delegate assembly meeting and she did attend the breakfast for CCBE. But to walk through the conference center, I didn't see any of my board members, and I saw very, very few county board members that I know. So I am so concerned about what's going to happen to us. And what I would like to request is that we write a letter to CSBA. I would like to request that we all submit our comments and our concerns to either Chelsea or anyone else that Superintendent McGee thinks would be appropriate. It be put in a letter and sent. It has to go to Naomi Easton, but I would like to see Vernon Billy. We aren't allowed to contact him or talk to him or have any communication with him. Everything has to go through Naomi. And I mean, there's all kinds of concerns, and also the double payment of CSBA dues and then CCBE dues. Well, why are you taking CCBE dues if there's no CCBE? And they said it was to pay for Samantha, who is our project manager. Well, right now Samantha has things to do, but if we don't have any more workshops, and it was very clear that it will be MIG and MIG alone after this one, or any more conferences, what is she going to do? Everything we've requested has had to go through CSBA, and they have said, no, you can't do that. We've asked to send out emails. We've asked for lists. We have done all the things that we used to do with just Samantha, and she would send out a blast. She would send out emails to everyone. She would inform all of our county board members, and she is no longer allowed to do that. So I have great concern, and we really are hoping we can also work with county superintendents because it was also very clear to us that CSBA feels very threatened if we do work with county superintendents, which is another big concern. So I don't know if any of you have any questions for me or not. I have spent literally hours on the phone and in text messages and whatever on this outside of the 4 hours I have spent in the transitional group meetings.
Thank you, trustee Gerard. Does anyone have any comments, questions?
May I just ask, Bev,
Yes.
do you have the feeling like this is a done deal?
Yes. Even though they said that they would take our suggestions and work with us until May, I think they've already decided what they're going to do or not do. And they even said, and if you look at the letter or the information they sent, that they understood that CCBE provided extensive services to county boards and county board members, and that they would not be able to provide all of those services, or we would be charged for them. And before, you weren't necessarily charged for those things. So yeah, it's not a good feeling at all. And it was interesting when we had our first meeting about our workshop, they had Amy Christensen in there. And today they had Amy and Mike Walsh in there. So, and they were asking for volunteers for, as kind of partners in the different sessions. And the one session that no one on the call was even able to volunteer for was the governance session, which when they did a survey among county board members, that was the number one thing county board members wanted in the workshop was governance. And they had completely, at the last meeting, completely eliminated that. They weren't going to have governance at all.
You mean a different kind of governance that we have that rather than a regular board?
Well, our governance training on what do you do as a county board member?
Yeah.
Yeah. And because at this workshop, a lot of new board members attend. That's why it's in March, so that people that are elected, newly elected, can come and learn. And also they weren't going to use our handbook, and we threw a fit. I mean, we put a lot, I can't even begin to tell you the hours that were put into that.
Was there any
handbook.
concrete reason for not using it?
No. And they said something about, well, we weren't involved. Well, they were, because we had it reviewed several times by different members of CSBA, just so they couldn't say that they had nothing to do with it. So, yeah. So I would really, really appreciate all of you submitting comments and concerns. And I would appreciate if we can get a letter out.
Madam President, could I just ask a couple clarifying questions?
Yes.
Yes.
One had to do with sort of the timing of when a letter might be due. The second piece I was a little concerned about is maybe the mechanics of how the letter gets together, because there's a little bit of a potential Brown Act concern if comments come from, various members of the board.
Can they
to-
go to Superintendent McGee or?
Possibly, there might be some alternative way of perhaps getting those comments channeled without everybody being CC'd on them, so that maybe someone else, if there was time, could bring you a draft, for example, based on both the guidance or the concerns that have been expressed tonight, and maybe other concerns that might be shared with, I might even say council, or somebody else who might be able to take that kind of input and perhaps put a draft together that we could bring back to y'all for your consideration, maybe at your next meeting.
That would be fine. My concern is just getting one out there one way or another. So I don't care how you put it together, as long as it's legal and we can do it. I know that several other boards have done it already. And also information has come in. I've received information myself from other counties that have literally gone to all of their districts or that they
Board members.
represent. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally track that, but maybe I'd submit, Madam President, if it were the pleasure of the board, perhaps I could even work with trustee Gerard since she's got so much information about all this. And if people wanted to send me directly without CCing others, kind of their comments or concerns that they'd like to see articulated, we could certainly, I could certainly work on that.
That sounds great. Thank you for that offer.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Chelsea.
Yes.
So Bev, if you have some ideas already. or
Excuse
the
me,
board-
Mr. Cannon.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
If-
just
if
move, you
there-
can pick up your microphone and put it on the other side of the,
Thank you.
there you
So
go.
if there are drafts out there of things, that would be very helpful for me to see. You know, I know how much you've done and how many things you are aware of that I'm not aware of. And I would be glad to support your suggestions for moving forward. But it would be helpful to have a list of those things that are concerns. Certainly, you raised a couple tonight, the handbook, the conferences, the specific workshops that we had that have dealt with our actual concerns, the county's role in special ed, for example, rather than, local districts. So
Right, right. And all of those things are things that they're grouping in a pot, and they aren't in a pot. They're different for us. And so, it's, and it was constantly, well, yeah, that's a really good idea. And we can use part of that. And then we could do the rest at the AEC, which is the CSBA conference. Well, for one thing, and this is another point, our conference, it costs just about half of what CSBA costs. It's a much more inexpensive conference than CSBA. So, and it draws more people. There's more county board members that come to our conference than go to CSBA. So, anyway, yeah. But that was a constant thing today. And it just, we're talking about this conference, not CSBA conference in December. So, all right, I'll stop.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or things that anyone would like to raise now to include in the letter? Trustee Torres?
Is there a deadline for comments, deadline for when you want
Yeah.
that letter out?
There really isn't a deadline, but as soon as we could get it in, the better. The deadline for them making final decisions on everything is May at our delegate assembly there. But as of Sunday, all that will remain of county board members are 18 directors representing the 18 counties that, well, there's a lot more represented, but the 18 directors that were our board are now Region 14. So that's all there will be, is just 18 people. And that is what's taking the place of CCBE.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for the update. Thank you for the offer to help with the letter, Mr. Niblin. And I think that is a good plan. I feel like we should definitely respond as soon as we can, but maybe we can say that we want to do it by our next meeting, perhaps. That gives us some time to work on it. Yes.
Sorry if I missed this, but what are some of the main reasons behind this change?
CSBA decided, the board of directors at CSBA decided that they didn't want to have any sections of CSBA, that they just wanted one organization. And CCBE, California County School Boards, was a section of CSBA. And I mean, this has gone on for well over 50 years. So this is not something a new organization. This is an organization that's been in existence forever. And all of a sudden, the new CEO and the board of directors decided that we shouldn't have that.
Was there anything that sparked that desire to eliminate this?
It was all done in secret. And literally, I mean in secret. The people in the board of directors meetings and in the other meetings were told they could not tell anyone. So it was all put together and voted on and done, and then announced to CCBE. There were some couple of incidents that happened that were very unpleasant with a past president of CCBE that kind of ignited the whole process and said, oh, well, you know, this is why we're doing that. But that wasn't the only reason. This evidently had been in the back of some people's minds for a while.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
And I just would clarify that when trustee Gerard says it was a section, there's a provision in the bylaws for CSBA that allows for this subgroup, if you will, to sort of operate. And it had for many years, and it has its own leadership structure. So I don't know all the ins and outs of it either, but I'm just guessing the leadership structure as it existed was maybe not all in alignment with what CSBA wants, how it wants things to function. And so I think that was creating some issues.
Yeah, Madam President, I'd add that there's a 2-pager that was included in our packets that provides, I guess, CSBA's kind of narrative on kind of how we got to where we are. Then I actually found it very helpful to read this evening.
Yeah, they put together the FAQs, which they mentioned at the conference in December. I would just say one thing. I haven't read it carefully yet, but the one that concerns me the most is the very inexact language, I would say, around the trustee handbook, which I know was, much went into that. Of course, our former trustee, Mr. Ross, was kind of leading that as president. And the language it's on, I don't even know, there's no page numbers, page 3, I think, where it says, trustee handbook, CSBA sees it as a potentially valuable tool. They intend to review and incorporate elements into various county-specific trainings offered by CSBA. And our own trustee Gerard has for decades done trainings on the prior handbook and then the governance, and then was also doing them on this. And it's, at the very least, the process for my hope for the tone of the letter is that we express that there's an element of disrespect in terms of the structure that was in existence and the many, all the work that's gone into creating this really valuable resource for county board members. I know not every county board member previously served on a district board. I have, that experience, and it is much, much different. And it's very important. And I would say that the value of CCBE was very important for me in sort of learning the new role. And I think that CSBA, in my experience, doesn't understand that. There aren't enough people there who understand the dichotomy there in terms of how what our role is, how it is not the same as a county. We talk about this all the time. It's not the same as a district. And if you look at the numbers, I think we calculated it something like 7% of the board members in the state are county. And that's just not enough to sort of make a difference. And I'm also super concerned about the conference if they try to push all of the CCBE elements, all the county board elements into the AEC as was already said. It is a massive conference. It is already hard to get to most of the things. There are like 15 sessions going on at once, and they're valuable for different reasons to all board members, including county board members. But if they just were to make, for instance, a strand just for CCBE or for county, then, you know, presumably county board members would go to that, and then we wouldn't get to go to anything else. So having a separate conference continue, I think is extremely important. So those are my main points. And also I could say more about the policies, but I'll submit that separately. Okay, any more comments? Is there any public comment on this item? Doesn't look like it. Okay, in the script, it actually says that we would maybe give direction, right? That we may,
I think I've got direction.
yeah, so you have direction, so I don't think we need to vote, right? We have a consensus on that, I think so. Okay, all right, perfect. Thank you. So we're moving on to, what number are we on? Item 8C. The board will discuss and potentially act on the appointment of Youth Commission Liaison Bethany Zhao as our board liaison to San Mateo County Office of Education's Environmental and Sustainability Programs. Superintendent McGee, do you want to tell us more about that?
Sure. So Commissioner or Youth Commission Liaison Zhao mentioned at the last meeting whether the board could add a subcommittee around a topic she's very passionate about and has invested a lot of time and leadership in. That's the environmental literacy and sustainability work. I think the board had paused because there's a lot of subcommittees right now. And a thought was that the county office is doing tons and tons of work in this area, and having Bethany be dialed into and learning everything that's going on in the various layers of that work allows her then to come back to the board and keep the board informed about that, and potentially engage the board in what advocacy efforts you would rally around. There will be a big need for advocacy, as we have a huge project with 10 Strands that was allotted $6 million out of the 2021 governor's budget on curriculum around environmental justice for all grade bands across the state of California, and 10 Strands has been managing that project. It's a huge project. It's happening statewide. The curriculum will be ready in 2025, but we need to go back and advocate for another $10 million for the rollout of that curriculum through the county offices of education, because you can't just have a curriculum and say people go ahead and use it. You need guidance and training and advocacy. So we're going to need some advocacy over the next couple of years in a big way. San Mateo is a leader in the state in this work. We're already the named county office working with 10 Strands on the project. So we would like to be the statewide lead on that curriculum rollout. That's something we laid seeds for last year in the legislative session. The governor is aware and his team is aware of the work. Unfortunately, the deficit of the budget puts kind of a damper on what we can accomplish this year, but we have some ideas. So as we get further into that, we'll be bringing that forward for potential letter of support from the county board and maybe some discussion with the legislative subcommittee on that work. But Bethany can be your liaison on that, if Bethany is willing.
I would love the opportunity to serve as a liaison. Sustainability is indeed something I feel very passionately about, and I would be grateful for this opportunity.
Okay.
So turn it back over to the board for the next steps.
Thank you for the background. Thank you for your interest in doing and serving in that role. Are there any comments or questions from the board on making this appointment? And moving forward. Okay. Are there any public comments on making this appointment? Okay, seeing none. Is there a motion to appoint Bethany Zhao as our board liaison to the environmental and sustainability programs for the county office?
So move.
Second.
A motion by trustee Gerard and a second by trustee Torres. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Congratulations, Bethany.
Congratulations.
Thank you for doing that. There's, as Superintendent McGee just outlined, a lot of work going on. And we hear about it, if it comes up, but it would be great to hear, your intake or your input on it and to bring it back to us. We would really, really like that. So
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be able to get started.
great. Okay. Next agenda item is 8D. Board will discuss topics for future agendas. Are there any board members that would like to discuss agenda ideas? Okay, I don't have a request for a new item. I just wanted to make a request regarding one that's coming up on the 21st regarding the JJDPC. Superintendent McGee, I think you said there was the other report from the Santa Cruz County. Would it be possible for us to get that before the meeting or as part of the agenda material?
Yes, I'll put that on my list. I'm operating at about 50% capacity right now, so I'm a little slow.
you.
But I will get it out to you next week.
That would be fantastic. Or if you can send us the link or something, that
Okay.
would be great. Thank you. Okay, there's no action to take on this item. And then we are to board member comments. So let's see, Trustee Lempert, would you like to start?
Just very impressed with the two introductions today from our staff. Very impressive. That's all I have, I think.
Great, thank you. Trustee Cannon.
Well, Bethany, thank you for taking on that responsibility for us. The PTA lunch the other day, it was almost like the old days. Not as much of a turnout perhaps, but still the idea that we were together was very nice. And interesting to hear from the superintendents, all of whom are within the last 5 years?
I
Everybody in the
don't know.
room?
I'd have to, my
yeah,
brain
and I'm not
isn't
asking you,
really there, but
that was, I went home and I was telling Chris, I didn't know any of them. I knew the San Mateo guy because he went to kindergarten
Yeah.
with my daughter.
yeah, I think they're more like 2 years old than 5.
Yeah. Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
Toddlers.
So anyway, it was, and the PTA members who were there, on the other hand, Bev, they go back 20 years. So Colleen, Mrs. Sarver, Colette, Catherine Cross, who am I forgetting? Anyway,
I don't know.
Well, there's one
I'm
more.
trying to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've been to 3 PTA things
Uh-huh.
now and I'm getting mixed up with who and
Yeah,
what.
So anyway, it was nice to see all of those folks, the contrast between the superintendents being brand new and so many of the PTA members being veterans who stayed with us. Very nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have.
So that's all I have.
Thank you. Bethany, would you like to make comments?
Absolutely. So firstly, thank you to everyone for the liaison appointment. And moving on, last Monday to Wednesday, I attended a conference held by the California Association of Student Councils. I'm sure this won't come as a surprise, but I served as a part of the sustainability group, and we had the opportunity to present to the Senate Committee on Education about a sustainability policy. So from that, I've gained some experience writing bill proposals, and I was actually a speaker, so I got to deliver the speech, which was absolutely amazing. I had the chance to connect with a bunch of other youth in California, and they were truly inspiring. There are people from all walks of life who came together to make a difference, and it was an incredible opportunity. So I'm very grateful for that.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, trustee Gerard.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm. Your mic.
I won't take very long. I'll just kind of go through a list because I've been really busy since the last meeting. And again, I want to say congratulations, Bethany. I think you'll make a wonderful representative, and I'm so excited about the conference that you were able to attend and the experiences that you had. There's nothing like those kinds of experiences. So congratulations on that. I did attend 2 transition meetings, like I said, one on the 10th and one today. And I also attended the 17th District Superintendent's Luncheon, which was very nice, held here at our building. And it was fun. And all, all of the superintendents that spoke were relatively new. And it was very interesting to hear about all of the things going on in their districts. It was really fun. And they all got up and spoke for 10 minutes or so, Mr. Cannon, some of them maybe a little longer. But it was very interesting and I was really happy to attend. I also attended the San Mateo County School Boards Association dinner Monday night. And the speaker was Paul, help me with the last name again.
Bocanegra.
Thank you. Who was incarcerated as a 17-year-old youth and spent 25 years in prison for a violation, a violent violation he did not commit, and was let out and is now doing a lot of work in helping youth under the same circumstances. And it was very interesting to listen to his story. And I also attended our regional delegate assembly call, which was yesterday. And that was Regions 5 and 20, which is Santa Clara. And that was with our PACER. And that was an interesting phone call as well. They had an attorney from CSBA who did a presentation on how to handle disruptive and in some instances violent situations that occur at board meetings. And that was because of what happened last week at the Sequoia Union High School board meeting, which got very disruptive. And so that was really informative and very helpful. And then Ms. Benini and I attended also the Let's Talk district meeting put on by Randall Booker, who is the superintendent of the San Mateo Union High School District. It was the second breakfast that he has done, and it is bringing all kinds of people together, educators, superintendents, school board members, law enforcement. Who am I forgetting? Just help me.
Council members.
Yes, city council members, attorneys, to talk about what we can do about the inequity and racism in our schools. And this is for the San Mateo district, but I would love to see this in the North Bay, in the North County as well. So I think I'm going to start talking to some people about that. But we attended as county board members and representing County Office of Education. So, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Torres.
Yes, just a bunch of thank yous. So thank you to Beverly for all of the updates with the meetings. Thank you for attending those. Congratulations to Bethany. Really excited for that, especially with how passionate you are about everything. If you need help with anything, feel free to let us know. And then thank you, Superintendent McGee, for everything that you do. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I have some thank yous as well. Trustee Gerard reported on most of the events I was at, so I'm not going to go into great detail. But one of the things that's happening in a few weeks is, I've mentioned it 100 times, but the Transition to Independence Fair is going to be basically taking over the first floor of this beautiful office. And I just wanted to express my really extreme gratitude to Karen Williams, to Patricia Love, to Leo, and I don't know Leo's last name, but and Tech Leo, and also to Rich Maldonado for touring what I had estimated to the staff as being, a few people from the committee will come, and I think we had like 9 or 10 people come. So I walked into the lobby and Karen was managing it, and she toured us for an hour around the whole office and listened to us talk about how we would organize the rooms. And it was really helpful. And then thank you, Superintendent McGee. I think you were traveling, but we had our meeting in your office afterwards, and it was great. But it is such a wonderful group. Of course, I've been working with the team for years now. And they're so excited, and it's going to just be this great event. So I hope that everyone can come. It's on Saturday, the 10th of February. And I think we got things squared away. We still have a couple of things to work out. So I also just wanted to mention that the weekend before that, also here, the SMCSBA's legislative brunch is on that Saturday from 10 to 12. It's free, but if you can register, that would be great. Let Jennifer know, and share it with other board members if you happen to talk to them. It will be wonderful. We have our keynote is Congressman Mullen, and then we have Supervisor Simidian moderating the panel of all of our local legislators. I think we'll have 4 or 5 of them. So anyway, so that will be on the 3rd. And I think the last thing I'll mention is Beverly and I both went to help with the PTA luncheon today at Gateway for the Corydon Community School staff and teachers. And it was so much fun. I've been squeezing into their events for years, but we brought sandwiches and we made cookies. and
Decorated.
We helped decorate. It was a winter wonderland. And everyone they stayed for a really long time and ate and chatted, and it was just really fun. So we appreciate everyone so much, and so we wanted to be there to express that. And also the 17th district, there were a couple members of 17th district, Joanna Jeff, and also Lori McBride. And then they have some other people who came, but it's just really a lovely event. And I know they have more planned for the year, and we were happy to be there. So with that, the next regular meeting of the board will take place on Wednesday. Oh, that is not correct. Wednesday. Oh, yeah, it is February 7th, 2024 at 7 p.m. And this meeting is adjourned.
Yes.